So, this is the spoiler vlog for Star Trek Into Darkness. If you do not want to hear any spoilers, you have 10 seconds to stop this video. I'm not kidding. I'm gonna spoil it. Really, I am. Last chance. Okay, time's up. So, here's what happens. John Harrison unleashes a bunch of terrorist attacks on Starfleet headquarters, and Admiral Marcus tells Kirk to go get him, and he gives him 72 stealth torpedoes, he calls them. Some fancy new technology that's still highly classified, and in fact, this entire mission to go get Harrison is classified. And he tells him, basically, just go into the neutral zone, fire these torpedoes, they won't be detected by the Klingons. He's hiding on a part of Kronos that's not habitable, so he's not going to be spotted, and the Klingons are not going to be able to trace this back to us, and we'll be able to avoid war with them while still taking out the terrorist. But, of course, Kirk just has to go and disobey the order, and instead they go down to Kronos and take him alive. And this proves to be easier than they thought, because once Harrison finds out about the torpedoes, and he asks them, how many are there? And they tell him, there's 72 of them. And as soon as he hears that, he says, I surrender. I am your prisoner. We're done. And it strikes them a bit odd that he wouldn't put up much of a fight. And after they take him back, they start interrogating him, and he suggests they take a closer look at the torpedoes, because they are not what they think they are. And against Mr. Spock's advice, Kirk does so. And he actually has the new character, Carol, and Dr. McCoy try to open one up. Not because Dr. McCoy is a weapons expert, but because he's a very good surgeon and has very steady hands, which you need when you're trying to disarm an explosive. And, of course, it almost goes horribly wrong, but fortunately they were not wearing red shirts, so they were okay. And inside they find a cryogenic stasis tube with a person still inside. Nice and frozen, and probably has been frozen for the better part of 3 centuries. Because ever since they discovered warp drive, they haven't needed cryotech, at least not for interstellar travel, so it's been obsolete. And McCoy has no idea how to get these people out because the technology is so old, which leads to a plot hole later. I'll get to that in a second. And if you know your Star Trek lore, you can probably guess where this is going already. So they go back to talk to Harrison and ask him why there are all these human popsicles in the torpedoes. And here's where the big reveal happens. And the entire theater, every single person in that movie theater, completely lost their shit, for better or worse, as soon as Benedict Cumberbatch said the words, "My name is Khan." Star Trek Into Darkness is a remake of Wrath of Khan. Well, that's not entirely accurate. It's a remake of Space Seed, with elements of Wrath of Khan thrown in. They kind of combine the two stories. As I said in the spoiler-free vlog, I was not expecting this at all. Dear God, no. I had no idea they were going to go in that direction. And once the big reveal hit, I was a bit worried because I wasn't sure where they were going to go. But on the other hand, I kind of wanted to see where they were going to take this, because I wasn't expecting this, and I was curious. So I said, okay, you know what? I'll stick with it. Show me what you got, JJ. And for the most part, it works very well as a way of putting a new twist on this old story. Until it gets close to the ending. In the end, we find out that Admiral Marcus, Admiral RoboCop, is actually trying to start a war with the Klingons and was using Khan, who he inadvertently discovered many years ago, to start a war with them. And initially he was hoping Khan would assist him thanks to his heightened intelligence and heightened strength and heightened everything, because he's, basically been genetically enhanced, as have all of the human popsicles that are in the torpedo tubes. But when he turned his back on him, he decided to use this as a way to start war with the Klingons. And eventually, since Captain Kirk has betrayed him, he decides to take his brand new classified combat ship and blow the ever-loving shit out of the Enterprise. Which doesn't quite work, but it does damage the warp drive, leaving them stranded, and no one can go in to repair it because of a radiation leak, and you have seen this before. Yes, you have, except this time the roles are reversed between Kirk and Spock. Now, this is where the movie kind of started to fall apart from the perspective of a Star Trek fan. Because that ending just... what they did, first of all, for just, taking that bit wholesale from Wrath of Khan and then, simply changing it by switching the roles between Kirk and Spock, doesn't really work. Not that I can't see Kirk sacrificing himself to save the crew. I can see that. What I can't see, and what prompted me to do this, was Spock sitting there watching his friend die behind the radiation shield, because still they have not learned to keep extra radiation suits in the Enterprise. You think that would have occurred to them by now. And then it is Spock who yells out the signature line, "Khan!" No. I'm sorry. It worked when Kirk did it. It's really not in character for Spock. I'm sorry, I'm not buying it. That just does not work. No. Oh God, no. No. Ugh. And then, of course, like they resurrected Spock in Star Trek 3, they resurrect him in the last 20 minutes of this movie. So they speed the process up a bit. And basically they do so by taking a sample of Khan's blood, because Khan's body has super regenerative capabilities. And apparently all you have to do is just take a little sample of his blood and inject it in someone, and boom, they are healed. Now, to be fair, they don't totally pull this out of their asses. In fact, they do establish this very early on in the film. In one of the very first scenes, actually, after the opening action sequence, just to kind of get the ball rolling. And the way Dr. McCoy discovers this is he takes a sample of Khan's blood and injects it into a dead Tribble. Why does he have a dead Tribble on board? Because fan service. And science, I guess. But yeah, and when they discover that they might be able to save him with a sample of Khan's blood, unfortunately, by this point, Khan has escaped, and they need to go capture him. So in the meantime, they decide to take one of the cryotubes and put Captain Kirk inside to preserve his body until they can get him the cure. Unfortunately, here's the problem. When they first discovered the cryotubes, Dr. McCoy's reaction was, I have no idea what to do with this. No one's used this technology for hundreds of years. And then later in the movie, suddenly he knows how to use it to freeze Kirk. Did I miss something? Because that seems like something that probably should have been explained, how he suddenly knows how to work this stuff. And maybe there's a deleted scene that explains this. I don't know. That was the case with the first Star Trek movie, and some of the scenes they cut out created a bunch of new problems, but that probably happened here as well, but yeah. So that's where the story kind of fell apart for me. Not enough to ruin the movie, like I said, just really, I don't think they should have gone in that direction. And man, oh man, the nerds are going to rage over this. Now, I will say this, if you are going to rage, do it right. And I say this because there was some fucking douchebag a couple of rows behind me while the end credits were playing who was screaming at the screen, "Plagiarism! They stole this from Wrath of Khan! They stole it! Plagiarism!" He must have said plagiarism about 50 goddamn times. I am normally a very calm, quiet, reserved guy. Not a violent man. And I wanted to punch this stupid prick in his stupid prick face again and again and again and beat the definition of the word plagiarism into him. It's a remake, you dumb fuck. That's not plagiarizing. It's taking an old story, putting a new spin on it. Not the same thing. Shut your hole. God. I'm sorry, that guy pissed me off, and I had to rant about it just to get it out of my system. Ugh. In fact, there was even a cameo from Leonard Nimoy, which served no other purpose other than to tell you, yes, we have seen this Khan guy before. This is, in fact, a remake. Yeah, it's a very brief cameo from Leonard Nimoy as Spock Prime, and yeah, honestly, it didn't need to be there. It's always good to see Nimoy again, but they didn't have to put that in there. They really didn't. But yeah, that's the moral of this story is, if you are going to rage, do it right. Don't be that guy. Rage for the right reasons. There are plenty of them. Plenty. God, no. So yeah, that's what didn't work about this movie, but like I said, I still enjoyed it. Sue me. I'm a sucker for space battles, I guess. So, yep, that's about it. Until next time, live long and prosper.